late November, 2012. Snow fell in thin, steady lines across the Cascade Ridge in northern Washington. Wind whispered between the pines, low and cold, like a breath that never ended. A red Ford F-150 climbed the slope alone, its headlights cutting through sheets of fog. Behind the wheel sat Caleb Wren, 52, a quiet man with hands made for fixing engines and eyes that didn't blink much. He wasn't lost in thought, just steady, like someone who already knew the forest better than himself. Each winter, he came here. He called it his reset. No phone, no family, no noise, just the rifle, the woods, and the silence. The small town of Ironwood had grown used to it. Head leave on a Thursday, come back by Sunday, truck coated in dust and pine needles. People joked he was part of the forest, that even the deer probably recognized his boots. That morning, the air bit sharper than usual. He packed light, a steel thermos, a can of beans, a radio receiver patched with duct tape. His wife, Lydia, stood on the porch, holding the same scarf she tied for him every year. "Back before Sunday?" she asked. He smiled a half smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. "Same as always," he said, and drove off. The truck disappeared into the fog at the bend, tail lights glowing once, then gone. That was the last time anyone saw him alive. At 2:37 p.m., Caleb left the paved road and turned onto a narrow track marked Blue Hollow Access Road 9. The sound of gravel under his tires echoed in the emptiness. No other vehicles, no radio chatter, just that slow hum of the truck's engine pushing against the climb. Halfway up, he reached for the radio, thumb tapping the side until static turned to a faint voice. "FWOD command. Ridge Patrol here. Storm expected overnight. Repeat, overnight." The line cracked, then faded. He shut it off. Static had always bothered him more than silence. At 2:48 p.m., his truck stopped at the dead end of the trail, a small clearing beneath dripping pine branches. He killed the engine. The forest swallowed the sound instantly. For a few seconds, nothing moved. Then came a faint noise, metal scraping against stone. He froze, hand resting on the latch of his rifle case. The sound came again. Not close, not far, just there. A hinge turning in the dark, like an old gate moving where no gate should be. Caleb hesitated, scanning the tree line. A branch snapped, sharp and dry. He looked toward the sound, then started walking. 2 steps, then 3, boots crunching over damp leaves, breath showing white in the cold. He didn't draw his rifle, he just followed the noise into the trees until the fog closed around him. And then, silence. Total silence. By Saturday morning, Lydia wasn't worried. Head stayed out overnight before, when weather turned or trails froze, but when Sunday passed, and no call came through, she drove to the local ranger station herself. "Hes never late," she told the dispatcher. "He always checks in by now." The call reached Deputy Alan Rusk, the man on duty for the Federal Wilderness Operations Division FWOD. By noon, Rusk and 2 local volunteers were headed up Cascade Ridge. Fog rolled low across the ground. They found tire tracks matching Caleb's Ford, leading up Blue Hollow Access. At the end of the trail, the truck sat perfectly centered in the clearing. Doors locked, windows up, keys resting neatly on the driver's seat. Rusk circled it twice, his boots pressing into the half-frozen mud. He looked into the bed, saw the rifle case unopened, bedroll tied, food untouched. Everything was still there. Everything but him. On the passenger seat lay a notebook, 1 page torn out, 1 left half-written. The last line read, "When the forest goes quiet, you listen." Rusk frowned, looking around. It was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no branches moving, no wind at all. He stepped back, scanning the perimeter. Footprints, only 1 set, led from the truck toward the trees. They stopped after 6 paces, just stopped. No drag marks, no slide, no break in the pattern, as if whoever made them had stepped straight into air. He knelt, touched the snow where the last print sank deep, still soft, not frozen over, meaning it wasn't more than 24 hours old. "Caleb?" he called, voice low. No answer. The echo didn't even bounce back. It just disappeared into the white. By dusk, more rangers arrived. They ran a search grid, 8 men, shoulder to shoulder, moving in a slow line. Their orange jackets vanished into the mist before they reached the first ridge. Hours later, they returned empty-handed. No tracks. No scent. No sign of a campfire. Nothing. The only sound they reported was a faint, rhythmic creak, like rope under strain, coming from somewhere beyond the ravine. When they went to check, it stopped. Rusk filed his report that night. No evidence of foul play. Vehicle secure. Subject presumed missing due to disorientation. But beneath the typed notes, he scribbled one line by hand. Not disoriented. Something else. Snow came heavy that week, sealing the ridge under ice. The official search ended after 6 days. Case file 12W was marked inactive. Lydia didn't stop. Every weekend, she drove up, parked at the same clearing, stood beside the same truck now impounded by the station. She walked the trails herself, marking maps with colored pens. Locals started calling her the woman with the flashlight. They warned her it was dangerous to go alone. She said the same thing every time. If I don't look, who will? By mid-December, even the volunteers stopped joining her. Winter took the ridge again, burying everything beneath white silence. 3 months later, early spring, the snow melted back into streams, and the forest came alive again. Hikers reopened the lower trails. That's when 2 loggers found something. A steel thermos, half buried near a dry creek bed, initials C.W., scratched along the side. Inside, still faintly warm coffee residue. The site was 10 miles from Blue Hollow. Too far to walk without leaving tracks. Too close to explain why the thermos was still warm. When investigators arrived, the temperature of the liquid was recorded at 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Ambient air, 38. No one could explain it. The object was logged as evidence item #4, stored and forgotten. By summer, the case went cold. Lydia stopped filing calls. The ridge was closed off after a landslide buried part of Access Road 9, and the world moved on. But somewhere up that slope, in the same clearing where the red Ford once sat, a ranger walking the perimeter reported hearing a voice through his radio. It was faint, buried under static. Just one sentence, whispered slow. Don't let them start it. He turned in the device for inspection. No signal logs were found. The transmission didn't exist. The report was sealed that week. Official reason: electronic interference due to geomagnetic conditions. Unofficial reason: unknown. Inside FWAD archives, a new folder appeared. Case file 12W, reclassified as internal reference, the Vanish Protocol. And in the final line of that file, typed in bold, were 4 words no one could explain. Project status activated. Spring 2013. 3 months after Caleb Wren's disappearance, the forests around Cascade Ridge opened again. The search teams were gone, the flyers faded, and silence returned to the valleys. But inside the Federal Wilderness Operations Division, a new file circulated quietly between offices. Stamped in red, Project Initiation Internal Use Only. Its title read, The Vanish Protocol. No press release, no memo to local branches. Only a few people even knew it existed. It was framed as a training experiment, a psychological resilience assessment under sensory deprivation. That was the language printed on paper, but those who ran it, and those who survived it, said it was something else entirely. Every recruit chosen had one thing in common. They had either searched for Caleb or worked that ridge before. To them, it wasn't a drill, it was an echo. At 0600 hours on May 4th, the first group of 5 recruits was dropped by helicopter into Zone Echo 9, the restricted sector where Caleb vanished. Each carried only a backpack, a signal flare, and an analog radio receiver. No GPS, no sat link, no digital maps. The lead instructor, Captain Marshall Dykes, briefed them from a clipboard. His voice was steady, but the way he avoided looking at the trees told a different story. 2 nights, he said. You'll stay within visual range of your assigned beacon. No fires after dark. No comms, unless it's emergency. Then, before leaving, he added one more line, not from the manual. If the forest goes quiet, you leave. No hesitation. It was called Wren's Law. No one explained where it came from. The first night, the forest stayed loud, insects, wind, and the distant pop of branches under frost. But just after 2 a.m., the noise stopped. Not faded. Stopped. Every sound dropped away, like someone had muted the world. No wind, no echo, not even their own breathing seemed real. A rookie named Hale broke radio silence, whispering, "Command, are you reading this?" Static answered him, then, a faint click, like someone on the other end had pressed the mic but said nothing. Moments later, his signal cut. When dawn came, his tent was empty. No struggle. No prints. Only his headset, still on the ground, transmitting an open carrier wave. The team packed up and called extraction. Dykes demanded they keep their reports short, no speculation, no mention of missing personnel. Hale's name was never logged in the official manifest. Back at headquarters, a memo went out. Incident Alpha 1 Field Reaction Study incomplete. Proceed with Iteration 2. Someone higher up had already decided. The test would continue. June brought the second group. 8 trainees this time experienced forest rangers from Idaho, Montana, and Oregon. They were flown in under night cover. This time, Dykes made them record their own logs on tape. Every 6 hours, they had to describe what they saw, what they heard, what they felt. The recordings were meant for behavioral calibration. Most logs were normal until day 2. A voice in one recording whispered beneath the speaker's breath. A low murmur, repeating 3 words over and over. "Don't start it." When technicians replayed it at headquarters, the whisper wasn't there. The distortion existed only in the analog copy, not in digital playback. Dykes submitted a request to pause the program. He was denied within 24 hours. The order came from someone in Division Command, Section 4A, initials unreadable. The third test cycle began that August. This time, Dykes didn't lead it. He handed the clipboard to his assistant, signed his resignation, and left the base before sunrise. In his locker, they found a note written on the back of an old map. "We're not training them, we're preparing them." No one knew what he meant, but the phrase spread among the staff like a quiet superstition. By late summer, rumors ran through FWAD branches across the Northwest. Some said the Vanish Protocol wasn't training at all, that it was a way to test who could survive contact. Contact with what? No one could say. Others said the program was cover for something older, something that had existed since the Cold War, a government attempt to understand acoustic void phenomena. Every story ended the same way. Someone hears the silence. Then they're gone. In September, the program shifted again. Participants no longer camped together. Each was dropped alone, 5 miles apart, with orders to maintain 0 interference. One of them, a ranger named Lance Morrell, broke that rule on the second night. He crossed into another trainee's grid after hearing screams over the radio. But when command later pulled the tapes, there were no screams, just his voice, panting, asking if anyone was still out there. And then a metallic scrape, the same sound Caleb Wren heard before he vanished. When they recovered Morrell's backpack 3 days later, the analog recorder inside had captured 17 minutes of ambient noise. At 14:03, a deep vibration rolled through the mic, something like a generator powering up, followed by a voice, faint but distinct. Echo 9 active. Maintain silence. The same phrase appeared again, reversed, hidden under the static. Silence. Maintain. Active. The analysis team flagged the file as corrupted, though no physical damage was found. Within a week, every copy of the tape was deleted from the internal servers. No one ever heard it again. Outside the division, no one knew the program even existed. The only trace appeared in a line item on a budget ledger, Operational Preparedness Study, Wilderness Division. A number with no context. But inside the base at Rainier Command, the recruits whispered about it. They called it the Wren Trial. Some said the forest wanted them to remember. Others said it was testing who would listen long enough to disappear. By October, 9 participants were listed as withdrawn for medical reasons. 6 more resigned voluntarily. None of them ever spoke publicly. A civilian contractor assigned to repair communication towers near Zone Echo 9 filed an anonymous complaint. The radio bands in that valley aren't normal. You can hear your own voice repeating a few seconds late, like someone else is saying it back. When investigators checked, the complaint vanished from records. Even his name was redacted. Meanwhile, Lydia Wren received a letter she was never supposed to see. It came from a clerk in the division, unsigned, typed, one sentence. "They named a training program after your husband." She called the number printed on the letterhead. No one answered. 3 days later, the number was disconnected. But that night, she turned on the shortwave radio her husband once used. At 3:11 through the static, she heard it. A single male voice, calm and distant. "This is Wren Unit. Echo 9 complete." Then silence. By winter, the Vanish Protocol was no longer experimental. It became mandatory for all field operatives stationed west of the Rockies. Each session began the same way, a voice over the speaker repeating the first rule. Wren's Law. When the forest goes silent, you leave. No one ever asked who recorded it. And no one noticed that the timestamp on the audio file read 2012, dated 1 week after Caleb's disappearance. By Christmas, the name Caleb Wren no longer appeared in any government system. His home records, his driver's license, even his tax ID all marked inactive due to administrative reassignment. But inside FWD Command, the system still carried one profile under his name. Access restricted. Tagline, project status. Active. Some said the program worked. Fewer incidents. Fewer rangers lost. Every time the forest went quiet, the trainees turned back, just as the rule said. But others whispered that the silence wasn't warning them to leave. It was calling them to come closer. That every new recruit brought the sound deeper into the woods. And somewhere inside Zone Echo 9, something was still listening. Early spring, 2014. The snowline pulled back from the ridge, leaving the forest soaked and heavy. Search patrols reopened the access roads for the first time since the previous fall. On a routine inspection near Greywater Creek, 2 junior rangers noticed something half buried under wet soil. At first, it looked like a chunk of aluminum. Then they saw the cracked antenna, the faded serial tag, an old FWOD tracking beacon. They radioed command. The object was catalogued, logged, and sent to the technical unit at Rainier Base for analysis. The serial number matched the first missing recruit from the original Vanish Protocol cycle, Hale, the rookie who vanished that night in May. Technician Evan Dre, who handled the analysis, reported something odd. The device's battery had long been dead, but its memory chip still held a 22-minute audio file. The timestamp read, the 19th of March, 2014, 01:42 a.m. That date didn't fit. Hale had been gone for 10 months. How could a dead beacon record anything long after it was lost? Dre made a copy and played it back through the lab speakers. The first 2 minutes were static. Then, faint breathing, and beneath it, a low, dragging sound, like metal against stone. At minute 7, a voice came through. Not loud, not close. A whisper, grainy, almost mechanical. "If anyone finds this, don't let them. Activate the protocol." Then, silence. After that, faint murmurs, almost like a conversation between 2 people. But every voice on the tape was the same. It was Hale's voice, overlapping itself, repeating, "Don't start it. Don't start it." Dre wrote a short report. He labeled the file Audio Artifact 47E, submitted it to archives, and went home. By morning, his workstation had been wiped clean. The copy he made, gone. The physical chip missing. The storage room logs erased. Only his written report remained. 3 pages, stamped restricted, Division 4, A access only. A week later, technicians noticed something stranger. One of the radio servers at Rainier Base began transmitting on its own. Every night, at exactly 1:42 a.m. Same frequency as the beacon. No human input, no connected source. The broadcast carried a repeating tone followed by a voice. Low, clipped, emotionless. Echo 9, active. Maintain silence. It ran for 37 seconds, then stopped. Every night, same time. No one could trace it. In the months that followed, new anomalies surfaced around Zone Echo 9. Field cameras malfunctioned. Compasses spun erratically within a 2-mile radius. Even GPS satellites showed black static patches directly over the ridge. At first, the anomalies were dismissed as magnetic interference. But then came the footprints. Rangers discovered a single line of prints appearing overnight across soft mud human boots, size 11. They began at the boundary fence of the restricted zone and ended abruptly, 20 feet in. The pattern matched Caleb Wren's archived boot size. A task force was assembled to investigate. Agent Warren Lytle, from FWAD's Internal Investigation Branch, took command. He had a reputation for cleaning up classified messes. To him, this was another one. His first briefing was short. Recover the beacon data, contain the signal, close the protocol. He didn't believe in ghosts, but he believed in cover stories. Lytle and his team hiked into Echo 9 under thick fog. The old sign authorized personnel only hung crooked, half buried in moss. As they advanced, their radios began to distort, crackling with fragments of familiar words. Maintain silence. Don't let them start it. The sound looped like a broken recording, but none of them were transmitting. By nightfall, they reached an abandoned operations post, a concrete bunker used during the second training cycle. Inside, everything was left exactly as before. Cots, notebooks, ration cans, even the blackboard where someone had written in chalk, "We're preparing them." Lytle ordered a perimeter sweep. One ranger, Derek Holt, found a handheld recorder under a pile of tarp. Its light blinked red, still recording. He pressed play. The first sound was breathing. Then a calm, deliberate voice spoke. "This is Wren Unit. Echo 9 complete." Everyone froze. The voice wasn't digital. It was human, steady, middle-aged, and it matched Caleb Wren's ID voice print from 2012. They carried the recorder back to Rainier Base, but by the time they arrived, the device had stopped working. Every attempt to power it on failed. The file directory displayed one empty slot, named Vanish, online. Log data analysts tried restoring it, but the only line of readable code said, "Protocol status, live. No metadata, no timestamp, nothing else." Agent Lytle filed his report and recommended shutting down the experiment. His request went unanswered. 2 weeks later, his ID access was revoked and his position reassigned. The Vanish Protocol didn't stop, it expanded. A second facility was built at Timberline Sector, farther south. New trainees, new instructors, same rule at the start of every session. Wren's law: when the forest goes silent, you leave. Except this time, the voice delivering the instruction was not from any known FWAD instructor. Its waveform matched the one from the missing recorder. The official line said it was a voice actor. No one in the building remembered recording it. Late that autumn, Lydia Wren visited the ridge again. It had been nearly 2 years since Caleb vanished. The government had stopped answering her letters, but she still came, parking just outside the gate marked Zone Echo 9. The trees were bare, the air thin with static. She left flowers by the sign, then turned to go. That's when her old radio, sitting on the dashboard, came alive. "Lydia, go home." Her breath caught. It was Caleb's voice. Same tone, same pause, the exact way he used to say her name. The radio shut off. When she checked, the battery was disconnected. Meanwhile, back at Rainier Base, a new analyst, Renee Garrison, found something buried in the archive database. A subfolder hidden behind firewall logs, titled Case File 12WXE, Active Memory. Inside were dozens of sound files, all variations of the same sentence, each slightly different in pitch, tempo, and background noise. When she overlaid them, it formed a perfect voice map of Caleb Wren. Except one file was longer than the rest. At the end of that clip, a second voice appeared. Younger, clearer, maybe Hale's. "Sir, what is this place?" "Preparation," the older voice replied, "for when silence comes back." The file ended with a single tone. a deep mechanical hum that lasted 15 seconds before cutting to static. Renee sent the discovery up the chain. Within an hour, her clearance was frozen. By morning, her workstation had been physically removed from the lab. That day, a new memo circulated through FWAD channels. No sender, no header, just text. All materials related to Vanish Protocol are to remain offline. Do not access, replicate, or discuss. But the same night, the rain sensors on every relay tower in Cascade Ridge tripped at once. The system logs showed simultaneous activation, all broadcasting a single message in Morse code, ECHONINEACTIVE. Rangers in nearby outposts began hearing things again, footsteps behind them, voices in the headset repeating their own words a beat too late. One described seeing a man in an orange jacket standing near the ridge at dusk. He waved once, then turned away. They said he looked exactly like Caleb Wren. That week, FWAD Command sealed Zone Echo 9 permanently. They fenced it, shut down all power, deleted all digital records. The forest was declared off-limits for ecological recovery, but in the final hours before the blackout, an automated transmission triggered on every regional channel. No source, no authorization. It lasted only 5 seconds. This is Wren Unit. Echo 9, still active, then static, and once again, silence fell over the ridge. Winter, 2023, 11 years since Caleb Wren vanished into Cascade Ridge. Most HOD worked, the original case were gone, transferred, or retired into silence. At the Federal Wilderness Operations Division, the Vanish Protocol was no longer a rumor. It had become an unspoken rule, a ghost running inside every training program. No manual mentioned it, but every recruit knew its first line by heart. Wren's Law: when the forest goes silent, you leave. They didn't call it superstition anymore. They called it survival instinct. Across the Pacific Northwest, reports of echo events had dropped to 0. No disappearances. No unexplained signals. For a while, it looked like the forest had finally gone quiet. But silence never really meant peace. It meant something was waiting. At 2:47 a.m., on November 22nd, every FWAD base west of the Rockies received a broadcast on their internal channel. No source, no ID tag, just a timestamp. The message played twice. Wren Unit active. Maintain silence. The system flagged it as routine diagnostic playback. But diagnostics don't play at 2. 47 inches the morning, or in perfect sync across 12 facilities. 2 days later, Special Agent Maren Cole, a communications analyst, was ordered to audit the broadcast system. She pulled every log, every archive, every data node. What she found shouldn't have been possible. The transmission wasn't coming from a base. It was coming from a field repeater tower deep inside the closed perimeter of Zone Echo 9, a site officially dismantled 9 years earlier. She replayed the signal and slowed it down by 50%. Under the automated voice, she heard another sound breathing. Then, faintly, a man's whisper. Don't let them start it again. Her supervisor told her it was interference. She didn't argue. But that night, she took a private drive out toward the old access road. Cascade Ridge looked different now. New growth covered the burned patches. Only the highest pines still bore the scars of old lightning strikes. When she reached the barrier, the government fencing was still intact, except for one section, bent outward, like something had pushed through from the inside. The snow around it was untouched. Smooth, too perfect. Cole killed the headlights, grabbed her field recorder, and stepped out. Every sound, her footsteps, her breath, the creak of her jacket felt too loud. The forest should have answered. It didn't. Then her radio clicked on by itself. A voice, faint, layered with static. This is Wren Unit. You shouldn't be here. She froze. The voice wasn't hostile. It sounded almost tired. Go home, Maren. Her name? It said her name. She turned back to the car and drove until dawn, never looking in the rearview mirror. The next morning, she filed her report, left the recorder in the evidence bin, and requested reassignment. 2 days later, the bin was empty. Her transfer was denied, and her name quietly appeared on an internal roster marked Project Continuation Team. Someone wanted her to stay close. Weeks later, she received a message on her work terminal. No sender, no subject line, just a file attachment. Legacy. Transmission. WAV. She hesitated, then played it. First came static, then a voice. Low, deliberate, older, rasping. To whoever finds this, you've been running the wrong direction. The protocol isn't protection. It's containment. We built it to keep what's inside Echo 9 from spreading, but they turned it into training. The silence isn't danger. It's a wall. Cole stopped the playback halfway through. Her hands were shaking. She restarted it and played the rest. If the forest goes quiet, it means it's holding something back. Don't break it. Don't start it again. Then, faintly, one more line. Wren out. The timestamp, 2014. 2 years after his official disappearance, Cole copied the file to an external drive, but by the time she checked again, the original had vanished. IT logs showed it had never existed, yet the voice still echoed in her head. She went digging. Buried deep in FWAD archives, she found an old requisition order dated 2013 signed by Captain Marshall Dykes, the first instructor of the protocol. The order requested new signal towers for remote containment relay. It wasn't about training at all. It was a defense network. Cole drove back to Cascade Ridge one last time. She parked near the old access road, snow crunching under her boots. The trees leaned close, as if listening. She turned on her radio. Unit K-42 checking frequency, she said softly. A crackle, then a whisper. Welcome back. The light on her receiver flickered from green to red. A soft hum began beneath her feet, deep in the ground, like power returning after a long outage. At Rainier Base, monitors blinked online in unison. Terminals scrolled the same phrase across every screen. Echo 9 reactivated containment cycle 002. The system rebooted itself. Old files resurfaced. Audio artifact 47E. Vanish. Online. Log. Wren voice set 01 all reappearing after years of deletion. The broadcast began again. Wren unit active. Maintain silence. Except this time, the voice wasn't automated. It was live. Cole stood at the ridge's edge, watching fog drift through the pines. The hum grew louder, pulsing like a heartbeat under the soil. The radio hissed in short bursts, matching the rhythm. Then came another voice layered. Many voices blended together, repeating one sentence. The forest remembers. Branches shivered. Snow fell in soft cascades, like dust off an old ceiling. Cole stepped backward, eyes wide. The forest exhaled. 3 days later, the region was hit by a power surge that shut down every communication tower for 50 miles. When systems came back online, Zone Echo 9 had been wiped off all digital maps. Satellite imaging showed only dense forest. No roads, no fences, no trace of the facility. Official explanation: data corruption due to solar flare activity. Unofficially, everyone at Rainier Base knew the truth. The protocol had consumed itself. Months passed. The division quietly issued a new training doctrine, stripped of all references to Wren or Echo 9. But every rookie still learned the same line from the instructors who'd been there the longest. If the forest goes quiet, you leave. They didn't know where it came from. They just repeated it, year after year, like prayer. In May 2024, a hiker uploaded a short video to an online forum before his account disappeared. It showed a man standing deep in the fog at Cascade Ridge orange jacket, radio on his shoulder. The man turned toward the camera, face pale, unreadable. Then the image cut out. Audio analysis found a single voice under the distortion. This is Wren unit. Silence maintained. The clip was deleted within hours, but copies resurfaced everywhere. By the next winter, the phrase had become folklore. Hunters in Oregon, climbers in Idaho, loggers in Northern California all repeated stories about the Wren broadcast. Some claimed it saved their lives when storms rolled in. Others said it followed them home, playing through dead radios and unplugged speakers. Whatever it was, it spread. and with it, the silence. At headquarters, the last living architect of the Vanish Protocol, former Captain Marshall Dykes, sat in a retirement home overlooking the Sound. He hadn't spoken about the project in over a decade, but when a reporter asked him if the forest was ever dangerous, he smiled faintly and said, "Only when it stops talking." Then he looked out the window toward the Cascade horizon. Fog was moving in fast, and for a moment he swore he heard a radio crackle somewhere below the wind. Wren unit active. He closed his eyes. The sound faded, and the forest fell silent once more. 2 weeks later, his nurse found a note on his bedside table. Typed, unsigned. One sentence. The silence was never ours to break. Today, the Vanish Protocol no longer exists, at least on paper. But each November, when snow returns to Cascade Ridge, every FWAD radio blinks to life at 2:47 a.m. The same transmission repeats, unchanged for over a decade. Wren unit active. Maintain silence. No one dares to trace the signal anymore. No one goes back to the ridge. And still, the forest remembers. Because some voices, once they start speaking, never really stop.